This episode of Unscripted Turbulence is sponsored by Dude Wow Cocktails. Bold flavor, no extra ingredients. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks. I know. Just kidding. Oh, wow. We're here.
You're here.
Okay, so we're going to do this, and there are tissues to the left of me.
All right.
Should we need.
Should we need them?
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm
make
ready.
sure my microphone is all set up here. I think it is. Woo! Okay, so welcome to Unscripted Turbulence. I'm your host, Raegan Medgie. Today, grab the tissues. I'm just going to forewarn you. We are going to be discussing grief with my friend, one of my besties. I call her my pea in my pod. Pea in a pod?
We're peas. We always say peas.
Peas in a pod.
Peas in a pod.
Angela Malpedo.
Yeah.
Now, you're also Angela Malpedo Yoo. I forgot to ask you, like, how
Well, it's Yo.
Oh, Yo.
Everybody does that. I made
You.
the mistake of saying you when I first met him.
She is my best friend, and I butchered her last name.
no,
I always
listen.
think I'm going to, and here I am doing it.
I have not officially changed my last name to Yo.
Okay, then
And
I am.
And he's
redeemed.
okay with that. I have it on social media on my Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. And it's Yo. It was like a long Hungarian name. And then somewhere along the lines, someone cut it off to Yo. But I made the same mistake. When I first met him, I kept saying, Keaton Yoo. Keaton Yoo. And then I was corrected.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have a friend who is on here. Her last name is Yoo. And
Yes.
I think Janice Yoo.
Yes. Because when I saw that and I heard it, I thought, this is the spelling the same? But it's not.
Yeah, no, it's you. So you're
All good.
Yo. Like, yo,
Yo.
what's up?
Yo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a long last name, too, because like you, we like our maiden names.
Yes.
It's our thing. It's our brand.
Hanging on to that.
Yeah, and then I have my additional name from Pilot. Again, we call him Pilot.
Pilot.
If we slip, I can edit out
Okay. I'm going to do my best.
Pilot. But yeah, but you didn't do the legal change yet.
No,
it's
I
a
haven't.
whole thing.
It's a process. We don't have kids, so it's one of those, I just haven't changed it.
Yeah.
And he's fine with that. I'll get around to it one day.
Yeah, one day. Okay, so Angela and I go way, way, way back.
Very far. I mean, I hate saying how old we are, but we go
Whatever.
really
You're
way
younger
back.
than me, so I'm
I
45.
am. For most of everybody, I'm a year younger than my whole class, which is so lovely.
Uh-huh.
It was not at the time
No.
when everybody was turning 16 or 21.
I was one of the first that could
And
drive.
I always thought in the back of my mind, I did really think this. In the back of my mind, I thought, one day I'm going to be really happy that I'm a year behind everybody.
Are you?
I am.
Oh, wow.
When people turn 40 and I was still 39.
People are like planning their funerals at 39.
Yeah,
Like, oh my gosh.
when we
Like,
approach 50, I'll be like, I'm still in my 40s. But anyway,
Oh, well, that's
fine.
interesting.
it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. But yeah, we go way back.
Yeah, I mean, high school.
High school, yeah.
Really, that's
we
when
went to middle school, but we
We
became
knew
friends
each
in
other.
high school.
Yeah. And then we roomed in college together at
Yes.
Temple University. Go Owls.
Yes, go Owls.
That was fun. So Angela is here today. We are taping. This is not going to obviously air the same day because we tape earlier. But today is this week is significant for Angela. Most notably was yesterday.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yesterday.
to get into that, obviously we're going to rewind and get into all the other things, but to get into that, what was so significant on the date yesterday? What was the date yesterday?
Yes. So February 19th was, I hate saying the anniversary because it's not a jolly celebration or anything, but it's what they call it, the death anniversary of my father. So he passed away 6 years ago, which is crazy to say out loud. And that was yesterday. So always a tough day. Some years I'm okay. Some years I'm not. Full disclosure, this year I was not okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
yesterday was a tough day.
Yeah.
But, you just never know how it's going to feel the day of or throughout the day. It can change.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we are obviously going to be talking about that. And I want to introduce you to her dad. I'm going to start freaking.
Please don't start. We're not going to start. start.
It happens
I
without,
know.
like, it's not like I'm like on my list of things to do. Cry, check.
But
It's
you
not like that
know,
show
I say a
Broadcast
lot.
News.
I'll always say to people, you cry, I cry, because it usually is the case.
So, no, Angela is from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, lives in
Yes.
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So she drove in today. It's a crappy day. It's shitty weather outside.
It was not great.
No, it's February 20th. It's
I was
raining.
gripping the
Gross.
steering wheel probably the entire time.
Sorry about
and
that.
I was swearing a lot, but that's fine.
Hopefully not on me.
No.
But I always like to have people in studio because I feel like there's a different energy exchange when you're in studio.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so-
I'm happy to be here. Anytime I get to see you is always a good day.
You're so sweet. We even took the good old subway, the
We
N
did.
train.
I am
all
getting
way
the
over.
full experience.
Yeah, so obviously when you look at the camera, our two shot is on that camera.
Okay.
And then the camera that you look at is this one.
Okay, great.
And then the
So
one
now
I'm
I'm
looking
gonna-
is this one. But it's going to pick up all angles. So you don't need
Okay.
to like look at a camera. If you're watching, you should be watching because you're going to meet Angela's dad. She got this for me. I'm unwrapping a gift. That's why you hear all the paper. Now, sometimes people just listen to this. That's why I have to.
Yes.
Yeah. So this, I'm going to see if I think I could zoom in, but this is Angela's dad and me.
Yes.
This is her wedding.
Oh, no, it was
No.
my brother's wedding.
your brother's wedding.
First wedding. Yes.
Well, you know, we probably picked that up when even though you whispered it, but it's fine. Yeah, so it was his wedding.
Yep, it was my brother's wedding. I was allowed to invite some of my friends to the wedding, which was amazing.
Oh, it was such a good wedding.
I don't know. I just this picture, I don't even know who captured it, but my dad always
Yeah.
loved it. I
if we
love
can
this
see it.
photo. My dad loved all of my friends, but Raegan had always a very
Aw.
special part of his heart and was probably her biggest fan. I'm going to say that. He always
He always thought I was going to be on TV.
he would always
Channel
say,
6
she's
Action
going to
News,
be
right?
the next Diane Sawyer.
Oh.
That
I
was
ended up
always
at
his-
ABC at one point, so he was right with that.
So he was always her biggest fan, and I'm sure he continues to still be your biggest fan.
Yeah, no, he
So-
definitely is looking out for me from above.
Yeah.
Lou Malpedo,
Yep, and he was
firefighter,
fellow lover of martinis as
Oh.
well. So, yeah.
Yeah, so he's just awesome, and I hate to say in the past tense, but grief hits you in different spots. I'm still holding it together, which is good, but I loved
great.
him dearly too. Obviously not as much as Angela. A daughter is love to her father. Jesus, here we go. Anyway, it's a lot.
It's starting, guys.
And it's not lost to me that my dad's still here and I love my dad. So it's hard, when you have your friends going through it. Oh, it's so early to the crying, but
It's okay.
anyway.
It's all right.
I'm going to try to keep it together.
I can't believe she's the one crying first.
I think it's because I'm all filled with
I
emotion.
know.
I don't know.
Yeah, give it time. I'm sure the tears will start flowing. From
Well, I'm
me.
going to try. No, it's going to be on your side, not mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to keep it together over here.
Yeah.
People aren't tuning in to listen to me cry or anything. Okay, so let's press the rewind button a little bit. So Angela from born and raised Bethlehem,
Yes.
Pennsylvania, still there. And what are
Still
you
there.
doing right now?
What am I not doing? No. So I'm all over the place, but I do many different things that I enjoy. But currently my full-time role, I'm a family business consultant with Compass Point Consulting. I just started that over the summer. So I shifted gears a couple of years ago. I had my own business. I had a bakery.
Yep.
All of those, great things that come along with it. And then I got into the nonprofit world. So I was doing that for a while in development. And now I've switched over to family business consulting, but it's been great. I've been learning so much, but learning about myself. And then throughout this journey,
Yes.
another piece of my history or in my past, but it's still present. I worked for a funeral home in Bethlehem. Should I say the funeral?
Yeah, you can say whatever
Connell
you want.
Funeral Home.
Yeah, they're great
Love Connells. All of the people there and the Connell family are just wonderful. I was working there for a while, doing some of the grief support, just working with the families. And through that, I thought, why don't I get my grief certification? Because at one point I was volunteering at hospice. That's kind of how the whole transition into Connell Funeral Home came about. Anyway, so I just finished, though, November. I'm officially certified as a grief counselor.
Okay, so we are going to dive into that. But
Yeah.
before we do, so you have an idea of who Angela is right now, her quick journey.
Yeah.
But it all started in little town of Bethlehem. And as my mom would correct me, Bethlehem.
That's how my dad said it too.
Really?
Bethlehem.
I mean,
Bethlehem.
Yeah, that's like the old school.
I say Bethlehem.
I say Bethlehem too.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, like overseas. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like there is a Bethlehem.
Yes.
In Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Grew up. Start there. Grew up there.
I had I don't want to say a normal childhood. We won't get into that. But yeah, it was the elementary school that I went to, right across the field is one of the fire stations for the city of Bethlehem. And that's where my dad was stationed the entire time I feel like I was born
Was
and
that Buchanan?
living. Yeah. So I went to Buchanan and my dad's fire station, Engine 9, was right there. So, I always said it was neat because, like, sometimes if my brother and I had, like, a test or something big or nerve-wracking that day, my dad would always meet us halfway during recess to give us a high five or more so to check in on me because Mike didn't need it as much as I did. I struggled growing up. I struggled in the sense of I didn't like school.
Yeah.
I had a lot of anxiety as a kid, which I don't want to say manifested, but turned into, as a young kid, I started out with an eating disorder. So that, kind of continued on as I got older through different phases of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, my dad was always checking in throughout the day. I always looked forward to that because I knew he'd give me a pep talk or just make me feel better. So, yeah, and then only time I left Bethlehem was to go to I started out at Kutztown.
Yep.
I didn't stay there too long, and then I made my way down to Temple and
Yes, you did.
And went to school in Philly. So
And then
I made my way back.
Yes. Now, let's start with the eating disorder because, we did they call it the discovery conversation when you talk to somebody who's going to be on a podcast or for an interview to make sure, what points we're going to hit. The eating disorder, I didn't know until we really lived together in college. And what would you consider your eating disorder?
It was, I guess, like anorexia. I was restricting as a kid and I didn't eat. I didn't want to eat.
And how did that start?
I honestly do not remember. My mom always says, I just remember you coming home the one day and I was like in first or second grade and someone told you that you were fat. I don't remember that, honestly. But I started to, obviously restrict. I didn't want to eat. It turned into I don't want to say a battle every day in my household, but just my parents had to always figure out a way to get me to eat. I didn't want to go to school. I had anxiety. And there was always a story that my parents would tell that I was so hell-bent on not eating. And my mom left for work and I was eating. She put a bowl of cereal in front of me and I didn't want to eat it. And my dad said, you're not getting up. You have to finish this. Or was trying to get me. And I sat there all day. And I was like, we were at a standoff.
And
I was not having it. He was not having it. But yeah, I was just, I was always stuck. And then, at that time it wasn't talked about a lot and we didn't have the resources like we do today. So I feel for my parents, especially my mom. She was dragging me around, I always said, to different doctors, different therapists to try to really get to the root of what was going on to better understand how they could help me. And, it was difficult. And I remember 8th grade going into 9th grade. Mm-hmm. I was pretty bad with it. And I just remember the one therapist I was seeing, and she was lovely. She was wonderful. She had said, listen, if you come in here next week and you're down another pound, you're not going to 9th grade. We're pulling you out. You're going to a facility. And I thought, I don't want to do that. And then ironically, I was good for the entire 4 years of high school, which is probably the most the toughest times for some people growing up. I was good freshman year, and then it switched again during college. So that's probably when I think I was really kind of getting, I don't want to say back into it.
You did. It was that summer. Remember that?
Yeah.
Wow. And so because I remember we roomed together in 10th grade. I think you were, I want to say like you were good when we were rooming together. Because I think there was a point where like, you get the freshman 15.
Oh, I had like probably the freshman 30.
I did too.
For sure.
I was a little thick. Although Pilot will look back, and this is awful. He'll look back at my pictures and go, ooh. Now,
Keaton does that for all of my photos, by the way. Keaton is wonderful, but he will look at some of my childhood photos. Granted, my hair was a disaster.
It was like
but
the
he
80s
will
and 90s,
he
for
will
God's
make
sakes.
the same type of
But that's what it was back then. But you know, everybody who's taking those like jazzy pictures today, they're gonna get the same response.
Yes.
I mean, and please, like our partners in crime, like they look back on their
Oh
pictures.
yeah. I mean
anyway, yeah. So I get the
Yeah.
like thanks, Pilot.
Yeah.
Whatever. You lucked out. You married up. Anyway. So but I remember it was around that time, it was 10th grade. And then
sophomore.
I'm sorry,
in college.
Yes.
Sorry.
I always think it's 10th grade.
No.
You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But so it's sophomore year in college, and then it was that summer. I think it really got bad for you.
That
you just
summer,
dropped weight. And I'm like, what the heck?
I think I want to say I dropped 30 to 40 pounds in literally like 2 months. It was that summer, and I remember it was so drastic. My hair started falling out. I didn't want to go anywhere. It started again. It was like that. I didn't want to be out around people. Just again, that anxiety was coming into play, and that was my way of controlling a lot of things during that time.
And it took a while to get through that and out of that. I mean,
yeah, I think it was there, and it was like this for a while. Then I'd get a little bit better, and then it would drop again. And I just remember I was always trying to get through each year, like of school. Well, like I got to get through this year, and then I just remember I had to take a semester off, or I was behind a little bit because it was really bad, and then when everybody was graduating, I was like about a semester behind due to that. And I don't remember when it was, but my brother came home. My brother was in the Air Force at the time, was not living at home, and he came back for a visit. And I was significantly even more skinnier from the last time he saw me. And I just remember him saying, I'm not coming home anymore. Like, you are slowly killing yourself. Like, so figure it out. Do whatever. He was angry, again, and that was the way to express, people being upset or, not knowing what to do. So I had gone to one of the eating disorder facilities, like outside of Philly. Started that whole journey, and, things didn't really stick. And I know through this journey because I was doing it for other people. I wasn't doing it for me. So going to a treatment facility or going to a different therapist because my parents are fed up or my brother's upset or whatever it is, or my friends are getting upset.
Know what to do.
It wasn't going to stick because I wasn't doing it for me until I finally did it for me, which was a couple of years later. It didn't stick, but it's always there. I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody. It's always there. It's just learning to pull out the certain tools from your toolbox to get through those days where you just want to retreat back into your old behaviors.
And your dad would, during this time, your mom and dad obviously tried to help you.
Yeah.
And, as you're getting better, and I mean, would you say like when your dad started getting sick, where were you on that journey?
Well, my dad started when he was diagnosed. I was in a good place.
Okay.
I think I was a lot small. We'll get into that. I was a lot thinner than I am now, but I think I was in a good place in the sense I wasn't say I was active in my eating disorder.
Right.
I will say though, through his illness and the ups and, the really low downs, there were so many different times that he had so many close calls of passing away, and things got really dark different times. I couldn't eat. It wasn't because I didn't want to. The way the stress and everything was, that was how I dealt with it.
So before we make the transition to talking about your dad, going back to the eating disorder, did you, if there's anybody listening, and going through it, how are you getting through it? I know you said you have to be ready for it, right? So
yeah, you have to want to get better for yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody else, because it's not going to change. And again, and it's not easy. There were a lot of things I wanted out of my life. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to bake. I wanted to do these things. And I thought, there's no way I can do this if I'm not healthy. I also knew the damage it was doing to my body, and it was starting to show up, when I would go for different checkups and they'd say, like, this is putting a strain on your heart, or this is affecting your kidneys. And I thought, oh, this shit's getting real now. I mean, you don't think about those things. And as I got older, I thought, yeah, there's so much I want to do, and I can't do this if I'm the sick daughter, I'm the sick friend, I'm not well, and I didn't want to do that anymore, and I really wanted to do this for myself and do all of the things that I had dreamed of doing. So I think that's really important, but I also know through the different therapies and the different people I've come across that have been on a similar journey, it's not always going to be good or in check. So you just, again, you have to you have to learn when things are going to start creeping up, or learn when you have to pull out a certain, like I said, tool from your toolbox, or lean on people, or reach out to people and say, yeah, I'm not feeling like myself, or I feel like this could turn at any moment. I've learned to vocalize that more with people, especially in my family. I don't want to say people are more in check, but like you or Katrina, or like my family, my mom, my dad, my brother, they were more like aware of it and kind of would know when to like look for, okay, we could see this pattern is starting to happen again. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look great today. I know we already had that conversation. You're like, I don't feel great. I just feel like a little thicker and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you do. You look healthier. And it's like awesome. I just want to let you know.
Thank you.
That's right. So now we get to a point in your life where, with your dad.
Yeah.
Because obviously I do want to go and talk about this mostly. I have a couple people in my circle who, did lose a parent.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes, somebody will reach out and say that one of the podcasts helped them. They're going through a hard time. So I'm going to give you the stage, my friend, and kind of tell the story of Lou Malpedo.
Of Lou. See, I was about to start crying.
Oh, here we go. It's that TV person in me, right? Getting like all like emotional.
Yeah. So Lou, to most people or to his family growing up, which I loved, his nickname was Bobby, because his full name is Louis Robert Malpedo, and my Grammy had all boys, and she did not like all of the first names that were like, she had to pick for her kids, so she picked the middle names, and then she called them by their middle names. So growing up, my dad was one of three, and he always said people always thought there were 6 boys in the family because, there was Uncle Richie's Carmen.
Oh,
my dad was Louis, but they called him Bobby. Anyway, yeah, he was growing up, was a fun dad, he always made life just really fun, and was always the life of the party. Enjoyed life to the fullest, which God love him. I mean, it's something we could all learn from, but he was a firefighter for the city of Bethlehem. Always said it was the best job in the world, even learning, when he got diagnosed, that most likely, pretty much, the cancer he had was from his years of firefighting. Most likely, people have that type of cancer, and obviously we're not in that occupation, but it most likely was caused by that. But
and what kind of cancer did he have?
Multiple myeloma. Okay. So it's a blood cancer, and he met my mom. They had a great marriage. I never really saw my parents fight. They would bicker, banter. But, Mike and I were very lucky to have them as, a model of what marriage should be and what it's supposed to be. So, yeah, it was – I remember getting the call from my dad. So my parents were snowbirds. Retreated to Florida.
That a lot of people in these
that's
all, know that.
That is all he talked about. He retired from the fire department as soon as he could, because he always said, and I just had this conversation too with somebody, he always said, as soon as I can get out, I'm going to get out, because I know guys that retire and then they drop dead. and I want to be able to enjoy my time for as long as I can. So he retired fairly young in his 50s, and he and my mom, they were off to Florida, and love that. Love that for them. Yeah. Love that for them. And, they slowly started to go down there more, and then they eventually bought a place. And my mom, not to switch gears a little bit, but my mom, this is leading up to this story, my mom ended up having a stroke in the fall the one year, and I went down there, and that Christmas, my parents were planning on staying down in Florida for Christmas. And prior to this, my dad would always go for checkups, like every 6 months. He always would stay on top of it because he would always say, I know something's going to come up, like down the pike, with my profession. I want to stay on top of it. So he was at his doctor in June. And
what year was this?
This was in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, 2016. So then he had said to his doctor, Bonnie and I are going to stay down in Florida this winter for Christmas. Is it all right if I push it out and come back in a year and, do my blood work? She says, yep, your blood work's always great, Lou, blah, blah, blah. So my mom has the stroke, and she decides, I want to be at home for Christmas. I want to be with the kids, the grandkids. So they came home, and my dad thought, I'm gonna go get my blood work. Goes and get this blood work. Mind you, he doesn't tell us until maybe a month before he's diagnosed, but his doctor had called him, and he was back down in Florida, and she said, Lou, something's off. You could be dehydrated. Something's off with your kidneys. I don't know. Says to him, I don't think it's cancer. And I remember my dad saying, I knew in that moment it was cancer. He said, I don't know what it was. When she said that to me, and she said, I want to go through some testing. We're going to put you with an oncologist down there. So it was a process for him to get diagnosed because they had to do the bone marrow biopsy, anything, all of that. And I just remember it was a Tuesday. It was the end of March 2017. And my mom called, and she said, we're at the doctor's office. He has cancer. It's a blood cancer. They have to do a bone marrow transplant this summer. We're going to go to Penn. And I just remember it's like the wind got knocked out of me. Yeah. I couldn't breathe. And life would never be the same from that moment on.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I don't even, I'm trying to the timelines. I'm trying to think where I was. I was in New York at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just, it's almost like, it's like your parent too when it goes, when this happens.
Yeah. So it was, your head spinning. You think, oh my gosh, and my dad really didn't have any symptoms for when you look at it. So,
because I don't remember him being sickly.
No, he wasn't. And at the odd thing at the time was one of my brother's best friend's father was diagnosed 2 weeks before my dad with the same type of cancer. And my brother and I were both like, this cannot be happening. First of all, what are the chances? Second of all, we had never heard of multiple myeloma. I had never heard of it. And then it became, my dad was like, melanoma? He was very confused. And, we learned obviously so much about it from that point on. But his best friend's dad was having symptoms. So we looked at it as when we were still waiting for the results, we're like, this isn't what dad has. There's no way. There's no way because he has no symptoms. He looks good. He feels good. Yeah, and thankfully, we don't know what would have happened if he waited until June. Would he have started to have symptoms? Anyway, they said right out the gate, they're like, he's in great shape.
Yeah.
We're going to do XYZ to get him ready for the bone marrow transplant.
Did they talk about survival? They said he's going to be fine.
Well, they were like, he's going to be fine with all of these steps we're taking. They didn't really talk about, they said to my parents, don't Google anything, which my parents are not on the computer. My parents. I don't even think my mom had a cell phone. Points. It's a whole nother thing. So they didn't Google. My brother and I Googled. Oh, wow. We couldn't help ourselves. So, our heads are racing, all of that. But they kept saying, Lou, we're going to start you on this regimen of chemo. You're going to get, infusions. We're going to do this, this, and this. And then we're going to get you ready for a bone marrow transplant using your cells sometime over the summer. So in our mind, we're like, okay, let's get through.
Progressing.
He starts chemo, and 2 weeks into it, he almost dies. He has a blood clot in both of his lungs. And that was one of the side effects from the chemo. We didn't know anything about it. My mom got him to the hospital just in time. Now he has a blood clot. Well, he had one in both lungs. So get him through that. What they're trying to do with these treatments is get his numbers as close to like 0 or as low as they can so that they can extract his own cells and then put them back in to fight off the cancer.
Jeez.
All the treatments are doing, nothing is happening. His numbers are not going down. He almost dies from the blood clots. So it fast forward to that summer, like midsummer, I think it was August. They said, we're gonna do the old-fashioned chemo. We're gonna do 24 rounds of chemo. He had to be in the hospital for a week, and that was up in the Lehigh Valley. So he's like, yep, bring it on. We're going to do this. And, we're all there, and he's going through it. And they told us, once we send you home, you're probably, your cells are going to drop. Your immune system is going to, everything is going to bottom out. So just keep an eye out. If you start running a fever, we have to bring you back in. All right. So shortly after, runs a fever, goes back into the hospital, and he quickly just starts going downhill. I mean, we can't figure out what's happening. His kidneys are starting to go. He's starting to go into kidney failure. They don't know where this infection is coming. He needs, be transported down to Penn. That's where his main doctors were. So they're trying to figure this out. And I mean, he almost died then. They couldn't do a lot of the treatments. They had to halt that just to basically, we got to get him better. And then we'll talk about what the next steps are, because we really didn't know if he was going to survive. I mean, he didn't. It was really bad. So he was down there for, I think, about a month. He started to come around slowly. And then, it's like, well, what do we do now? Because his doctor said, we want to do this bone marrow transplant, but it almost killed you. Just trying to get your numbers down. I don't know what we're going to do.
The doctor said that.
Yeah, and his doctor would always say, "Lou, you're such a unique case." And my dad hated. We started to hate that. My dad would make a joke about it. He's like, I don't like it. I like to be unique, but not in this.
Yeah, not in this way.
Not this way. So there was I don't want to say a cutting edge treatment that was coming down the pike. His doctor said, I'm going to try you on this chemo, see how it works. It started to lower my dad's numbers, and then this cutting-edge immunotherapy was coming into play, and his doctor said, you'd be the first person that would be getting this done.
Was he going to get a trial?
This clinical trial to the point where, Lou, we don't know how this is going to go. You may do really well. You may not do well. You could die from this. I mean, to the point where I'm printing off the papers that the doctors and the team are sending to us, and their autopsy report, like forms for my dad to sign off on.
My God.
And I just remember my brother and I were like, I don't think we want him to do this. Like, this is risky. And I'll never forget my dad just saying, I have faith in the doctors. I have faith. He tapped back into his faith throughout his cancer journey. I have faith that it's going to work out. And if for some reason it doesn't, it's going to help somebody else. Like, they'll be able to study this. They'll be able to do. And
isn't that a firefighter way of
saying? He went into that with, his positivity was like unmatched. Like so luckily, it was a tough journey, but they, it started in June, was June 11th. We always said it's his second birthday was when those cells went in to go in and fight the cancer. And he spent the entire summer down in Philly, and it was a slow road coming back out. But we didn't know. We wouldn't know for at least a month, maybe a month and a half, if that treatment, that immunotherapy did what it was supposed to do. And I'll never forget it. This chart, my mom still has it on the refrigerator. His numbers were like here, say whatever number it was, and they were almost all the way down to 0. And it was just such an awesome moment because
it worked.
He did it. They did it. He did it, and it worked. And we thought, oh my God, you could breathe a sigh of relief. We thought, okay, we can get back to some sort of normalcy, if that even exists anymore. And I remember taking him down. I was the faithful driver. I would drive him back and forth because, I knew the ins and outs of Philly from being down at school there.
That's right.
And I would take him down, and I'm a control freak, so I needed to always go and be with my parents and do all that. And that was a blessing at the time. And I always say I was able to do that because I didn't have my bakery anymore. And I was working at Connell Funeral Home, and Jamie was always said, you be with your parents, you be with your dad. That's the most important thing. So I'm always so grateful I had that flexibility to just have that time with him. And we're going for his checkup, after he got out of the hospital, after he had the clinical trial. And I remember getting off the exit, and he says, I think I'm going to be sick. And I said, what? Now, mind you, 30 plus years, I had never seen my father throw up. Never, he'd never been sick. He was very proud of that. He would tell people all the time. God. It's been, however long. Obviously, that streak ended once he got cancer, and some of the treatments he had, that ended. But never in a car like that. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And he did. He got sick. And I'm trying to drive and pull up to the valet. Anyway, we get up to the doctor. And, he's asking him all sorts of questions. Oh, you got new glasses. Maybe, you got car sick or something. And I thought, he has never been car sick. Long story short, he got pancreatitis. They believe it was from, something with the clinical trial. They don't know.
What?
Anything can kind of crop up.
Part?
Oh, yeah. He got pancreatitis. So now he's back in the hospital after being home for 2 weeks. He was in for a week. Uncontrollable, this man, when I say somebody needs to do a study on this, he had hiccups. This would happen when he'd get really sick. He would have hiccups for 3 weeks, and they would not go away. Nothing would work. He was he needs to be studied. It was the weirdest thing. The doctors didn't know what to do, the nurses. So he had the hiccups. He had pancreatitis. He was getting sick just because he couldn't keep anything down because of these effing hiccups.
Are you kidding me?
So,
oh my God.
Anyway, he comes back home. He's home a day, and this is just starting up again. And I thought, I can't do this. We get him back over to the hospital, and they transport him back down to Philly. And then at that point is when my cousin Rita, she's a doctor in Florida. She came up and she's like, we're getting to the bottom of this. First of all, we got to end these hiccups. And she figured out, she told the doctors, we see with open heart patients, try this medicine. And it worked. So he gets past the pancreatitis, which is now it's in August, end of August now. We had one good month.
And what year at this point?
This was 2018.
Okay, yeah.
2018. And we go down to Florida for my cousin Rita's wedding, and my parents are back down in Florida now.
Things are kind of going back to normal.
We're trying to get back to normal. Mind you, we always had to keep him be very mindful of germs and things like that. And he always had to get treatments too for antibodies because his immune system was so poor. And, we're at the wedding, have a great time. And they had to come back up right after the wedding because my dad was getting, he was getting the antibody treatments down at Penn. So they come back up for that.
Now, is he in remission at this point or anything?
Technically, you're never in remission with the multiple myeloma. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not a doctor. I shouldn't say that. For him, he was not in remission, but he was on a low dose of chemo to kind of keep the numbers, where they needed to be.
Okay.
So he ends up getting pneumonia. And we don't know if it's the travel back and forth. He picks everything up. He gets pneumonia. And we're thinking, all right, he has been through so much. We're like, okay, here's another hurdle. Well, it gets so bad. I remember they admitted him into the hospital. He's in the ICU. He's on the high flow oxygen. We're like, okay, they're going to get him all the meds, all of that stuff. And I just remember Mike calling me and saying, I'm here with Dad, and he is so out of it. His kidneys are starting to fail. They said they're going to have to put him on a ventilator. And we were just like, oh, my God, what is going on? So he was on a ventilator for a week, and we didn't know if he was going to pull out of this, pull through. And by the grace of God, they, he slowly started to come around. And that whole time I just knew I had reached my limit of, I was there at the hospital every day, but I could not go back into the room to see him on the ventilator. I'm like, I can't do it. I would stand out in the hallway and talk to the doctors or the nurse, but I would like stand off to the side so I couldn't see him in the window, just to get updates and report back to my cousin Rita what was going on. So he started to come around. His kidneys started to like rebound, and they got him off the ventilator.
Jeez.
And I'm happy to say that was October into November of 2018. He did not go back into the hospital until his episode of what unfortunately took him away from us. But I was just happy that he was able to be out of the hospital for all of 2019.
Well, is that where you had the pool party?
Yeah.
Was it that summer?
Yeah, so we did that, and he was
walking around.
He was great. I mean, he was great. His numbers were great. He was feeling good. He played in the band down in Florida. He was a guitar player. Anyway, it was a longer stretch for him to be out of the hospital.
Because I thought we all thought it was all going to be good. I remember talking to him at the poolside, and he was talking about Channel 6 Action News and something. I said, don't worry, like, I'm going to get you, I'm going to end up there, and I'm going to interview you when you survive all of this, and it's all behind us. I'll never forget. It was like a moment. It was warm that day, and I remember the green shrubs near us talking. It was just, I can picture it yesterday.
Yeah. So it was, he was doing really well. And every time, if he was down in Florida, he'd have to come up different times for his checkups at Penn. That was part of his, he met with his team, and they were just amazing. Can't thank them enough for everything that they did for him. But he would have to come back and get checkups and do the antibody treatments. And I was there, driving him around and sitting around and making sure he wasn't eating things he wasn't supposed to eat, all of that, and they would always say, oh, you're my patient advocate. And I really was. But yeah, and then they went back down to Florida after Christmas. It was right after Mickey was born, my nephew. And you never think the last time is going to be the last time. But there was something, and I don't know if I've ever said this out loud before. And hopefully I don't cry.
It's okay.
There's just something that I remembered when I gave him a hug when they were leaving to go back to Florida. And I thought, what if this is my last hug with him? I never felt that way. But I felt something like in deep inside, or something that I felt like, I don't know. I just had that like voice in the back of my head. What if this is the last hug that I get to give my dad? And it was. So that
was December of 2019.
That was, they headed back right before New Year's 2019. 2020 rolls around,
right.
And he was just not feeling well towards the end of January. And, the protocol is always, hey, you're running a fever, get him to the emergency room. And they got him to the emergency room and getting him all set up. I have the pictures of him, giving the thumbs up. And he was always, always positive. And, he was in for a few weeks, and they were like telling him it was one type of, oh, he has this, it's this infection and all of this, and he'll be fine, and we'll get him. Basically, the whole point was the hospital was saying he had a fungal infection, to the point where my mom had to get somebody to come out to the house to see if there was fungus growing in their house. That wasn't the case. Mike and I are up here, and it's around Valentine's Day, and my dad kept saying, I think they're going to release me this weekend. And my brother and I were like, what? He hasn't had any physical therapy. We know the drill. Like, he's been down this road how many times? We know the drill. Physical therapy, he's been in a bed for how long? This doesn't seem right. So we're like, okay, all right, whatever. And he gets sent home. I remember it was a Saturday, and I had an episode with my Crohn's. We won't go into that. And I was actually in the hospital dealing with it at the time. And I was just so happy my dad was home. I'm like, all right, he's home. Something seemed off. My mom wasn't really answering texts. And then Mike called me and he said, I just got off a FaceTime with them. And he's like, something is not right with Dad. I just don't think they should have released him. I don't know. I don't know. He said something. I don't know if he got a feeling too. Something's not right. So it was the next morning I was released from the hospital. And I remember I texted my mom, how was his night? How did everything go? And she said, we're back in the hospital. And I said, oh my God, what's going on? Long story short, he fell in the middle of the night. She had him set up in the living room and he fell. I think he was trying to get the blanket out from his legs and he cracked his face on the glass table. So she couldn't pick him up. He was so weak. And she called 911 and they came out to the house. They got him up in the chair and they left. They didn't take one vital, nothing. So my mom said he was complaining. He was in so much pain. And she said, well, maybe you broke a rib. You broke something when you fell. So she got him back to the emergency room. And she said, I'll never forget the emergency room doctor said, who discharged this man? This is a faulty discharge. My dad was in full septic shock. So we found out he was immediately put on a ventilator. And he was coherent at the time. And my mom even said, he even said, do what you got to do. I've been down this road before. If you have to put me on a ventilator, all of that. But his blood pressure was so low. And when my mom stepped out of the emergency room, the room that he was in, it was a code blue. He was, so they were pulling all the medical staff, got him on the ventilator. And still at this point, Mike and I are, trying to get a flight down. We can't get out until Wednesday. But in our minds, we're thinking, he's going to be fine. This guy is the strongest person that we know. He has been down this road before. Put him on the ventilator, let his body rest, all of that. Monday rolls around. My mom's kind of keeping us updated. And my cousin calls me and she says, when are you and Mike getting down here? And I said, Wednesday. That was when we could get out and blah, blah, blah. She's like, I think you need to get down here now. And I'm like, do you think he's going to die? I remember saying that. And she wouldn't answer me. And I thought, she doesn't know. I know she knows, but she doesn't know. We know my dad. He's going to pull through this. It's the next day my mom called. I was at work. And she said, the doctors called me. We stepped out for lunch and there's nothing they can do for him. This is it. And I said, I just remember, I remember, but I don't remember. And I freaked out. I was hysterical to the point where I was at Connell at the funeral home and John Connell had to drive me home. I don't remember much. I think I called you. Yeah. I called Katrina. I was telling everybody, not everybody, but I was just telling, some people that, I think we're going to say goodbye to my dad. I think. So unfortunately, we get down there and, they go over the whole procedure of what's going to happen. We're going to take him off of the ventilator, all of this. And the hospital that he was in, we didn't really know what was going on. It wasn't, I don't want to badmouth places, but I couldn't figure out what was going on. And my cousin was like, this isn't the greatest place, but we got to, the whole time he was in there initially, she kept saying, we got to get him better so we can drive him back up and get him to his people at Penn. We just got to get him out of there. So, we had asked, we're all a mess. Is there a family room that we can go to collect ourselves? We don't have a family room. My mom said, is there a chapel we can go to? We don't have a chapel. I thought, what kind of hospital is this? Anyway, so they sent us up to the vending machine area. This is where we are as we're coming to grips, if we can even come to grips with that, my dad is going to die. So they told us they would come get us once they took him off the machines. And I remember Uncle Richie saying, is he going to wake up? Is he going to know and just be terrified? And they said, no, we can assure you of that. We were waiting for a chaplain to get there because we had asked for a priest. And we go back down and I'm out in the hallway and I just remember Uncle Richie comes out. I mean, sometimes there are funny moments in the midst of tragedy. And he comes out and he's having a fit over the chaplain that they sent to give my dad prayers. it's a bozo in Bermuda shorts. I'll never forget. He says, this is the guy they get for my brother. He said, it's a fucking bozo in Bermuda shorts. I just started laughing. God bless Uncle Richie, because he was always the comic relief that we so needed through the storm. Anyway, we go back in. He's talking about something. Finally, my aunt, Uncle Richie's wife, just says, I'm going to stop you. She took over. And thank God, she took over. My strong Aunt Rita just was like, I'm going to do the rosary. Bob said the rosary every day. And she just started doing the rosary, kneeling next to my dad's bed. She's getting real loud. And at one point, my dad started to make like a noise. And my cousin, their daughter, said, he hears you. Like, he hears you. And it was right after that. That was it. He died. And we were all, anyway, just couldn't believe it. We ended up going to the grocery store right after. It's weird what you do after someone dies. I think because it's an out-of-body experience. I still remember thinking, we're at Publix and my dad just died 20 minutes ago. What are we doing? And I remember my mom went off in one area, Mike went off somewhere, and I'm just, walking around the store. So everybody deals with it differently.
I never asked you what you did
It's an out-of-body experience. You don't even know what you're supposed to do. There's no right. There's no wrong. Anyway, and his team of doctors, though, from Penn called me right away, his main doctor, and just said, this should have never happened. We are going to get to the bottom of it. And, months later, we had a medical review, and unfortunately, they mistreated my dad. They misdiagnosed him. Even though the pathology and reports and records showed differently. And they were treating him for fungal infection. He had a bacterial infection. So the meds that they were giving him was actually causing more bacteria.
Oh my God.
So sending him home on 8 liters of oxygen was because the bacteria was just growing. And they, I guess, stopped the antibiotics on him a couple days prior to that. So that makes sense as to why. Anyway, so... Yeah, even later that day, I'm talking to Jamie, about funeral arrangements and this and that, because they were just wonderful and took care of so many things of arranging to get my dad back up. And I just remember Jamie saying, what are your mom and Mike up to? Are they doing all right? I'm like, well, Mike is up on the roof cleaning out the gutters, and my mom's in the yard raking leaves. So, yeah. Death is weird. Grief is weird. The moments after somebody dies, you just do what you can to just get through.
And now you're a grief
counselor. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that led you to where you're at now.
Yeah.
And let's talk about this grief counseling. I mean, I have about 10 minutes left of this.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I've like one of my favorite movies growing up was My Girl, which Keaton thinks is so weird because if you know the movie, it's about death. And I was always comfortable with death. It's weird. I was always comfortable with death, and even as we got older, friends would lose parents, or I had relatives and they'd be on hospice and I'd sit with them and I'd be with them, and that's when I thought, I'm going to volunteer at hospice and sit with people who are dying. Especially if they're here and they don't have loved ones and I don't want them to be alone. I was always comfortable with it. So on some level, I thought, maybe this is what I should be doing. But it wasn't until my dad died. And at that point, I was running the grief groups at Connell.
I remember that.
I was running the grief groups, I had lost, my grandparents and different people. I'm sorry, I keep hitting this. But after my dad died, I, was doing the grief groups until, and there's the shutdown then. So then we weren't doing any of that with the pandemic.
And I remember your dad's funeral was beautiful.
Was like the last.
It was like
the
one
last
of the last
normal funerals.
events in February of 2020.
Yeah. And I always say, though, too, it wasn't like until like a year later when I started to see people and really like get out. Like, so the whole time you're grieving, you couldn't see people.
Oh my God.
You couldn't interact with people.
About that.
We couldn't do anything. And that was so difficult because that's when you need people the most. And I couldn't see people, or I couldn't have that connection.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like a year later when things started to open up or when, that I was running into people. And that's when I think I really started to like process it. Yeah. But yeah, through that time, I thought, I think I want to go down this road. It was very hard for me though in the beginning of trying to talk to other people about their grief because I just wanted to scream the whole time because my dad was no longer here, but it slowly started to come back and I thought, okay, I think I can do this. And then finally I was always taking courses and I'd take a couple of classes and then I would, put it on pause. But then finally last year I signed up for the last 2. I was dragging my feet. And then I finally thought, nope, I'm going to just get this done and make it official because, social media is great. And I started, it's nothing big, but I started an Instagram just for like that part of it, like the grief process. And because so many people that I follow that have been living with grief or down this road before, it always helps me. So I just always want to help other people in that space. And grief is so tough. And grief is, you feel alone even when there's so many people around you. So, I made that official in November.
And what is that called? What is that Instagram called?
That's called Here for the Hard Days. It took me a while to figure out how I wanted to go with that. But, my dad's famous line was, all days are good days. And that to him wasn't, it doesn't mean some days don't suck. Because they do. And shitty things happen. He just meant we get another day to love somebody, do better, try harder. And I don't know, through all of that, I thought that's what it is. Like that's what spoke to me. So I'm like, here for the hard days, even though all days are good days, but some are bad, some are hard. But all days are good days, he meant because we get another shot at this life. So, yeah.
So for anybody listening, who are going through the hard days.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna grab. Just get a tissue, okay? Here I have like 4 tissues around me right now. I look like a tissue factory. It just hits you at weird times.
Yeah, that's grief.
Speaking of,
that's grief. Yes.
So what would you tell somebody who is going through that, the hard days? I know it's a big question. It's kind of layered.
I always say you have to feel it, so don't push it away. I know we have a tendency in society to, I'm fine, everything's fine, push it down. But it's going to come out in other ways, or it's going to come out regardless. So I listen to so many different grief podcasts, things like that, and I heard something recently and I love it and I'm carrying it with me and I share it. It's make grief your companion because you are going to walk alongside of it the rest of your life. So make it your companion. And for other people that are going through it, it may feel like you're alone, but just feel the feelings that you're feeling and allow it. And don't feel like it's not normal to some days be really happy and laugh still and be really, really angry. Because another one of the podcasts that I listen to and some of the grief people I've talked, the people in grief, we can't experience love and joy fully if we're not fully living in our grief or accepting our grief and acknowledging our grief. And that is so important because I know there's certain people in my life, I'm not going to mention who
it's the way you say it. That's why I'm
are not, and that's okay. It's on their own time frame. They are not fully accepting that grief. So I can see that they can't fully accept or experience all the love and the joy and happiness that is also around them.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Well, thank you. You're amazing.
But I mean, for going through that, you're leaning into grief in a way, and that's why I wanted you on my pod, because you lean into the grief in a way that I've never seen anybody lean into it. And you're creating a safe space for people to go to.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in real time starting this. Like, yes, did you drag your feet for a while to do this?
Of course.
But who
do I always?
Life.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's life, right? So like you can't. Some people are a little bit more quicker with pulling the trigger than others, but it's life, right?
Yeah.
In different times and the timing, right? But I think it's, a hat tip to you for saying, okay, I'm doing it now, and you're sharing your grief with other people who are going through it.
Yeah.
Because we're all going to eventually be there.
We are all going to be there. And that's something that I don't think enough people realize or think about. Not that they think about it every day, but they should think about it. Or that expression, I can't imagine what you're going through. I remember someone saying, no, you can imagine it because it's going to happen to all of us. But I know I love when people let me talk about my dad freely because I'm sure it gets annoying, or I'm sure there's people out there that see my social media and be like, oh, she's making another post about her dad. I want to give people that free space. Talk about your person. I want to hear all the stories about them because that is what people in grief need too, is that safe space to know I can talk about them all the time and they're not going to be annoyed. And they're not going to be like, is she not over this already? Is he not over this? Because you're never going to get over it. That is like a misconception. You're never going to get over it. So I know I hold back sometimes if I post something. I'm like, oh my God, people are probably thinking, oh, here she goes again. I thought, no. If they can't understand, and there's that line or that quote, if they don't understand, then they should be considered lucky because they've never lost somebody. You know? So if you can't understand why someone's grieving so long, then you feel blessed that you don't understand it. But
she got me again.
I just want to give a space for people to know, talk about your loved one, talk about your person. And you could talk about them for hours and I will listen because I could talk about my dad for hours. So and he deserves that.
You know, people are going to be reaching out to you now, talking about their people for hours.
And I welcome it because I love to hear about their people and who they love and who they miss and what they meant to them. So
when I said the disclaimer of tissues, apparently that meant me because I'm over here.
And that is also, and just for, this is also what I mean. When there's times, this is grief, people. There are times where I think, oh, I'm going to bawl my eyes out. And I don't. And then it comes out of left field, something so random. And I give the example, if I have one more minute, really quick. I give the example of my wedding to Keaton. You know, it's an emotional day.
Oh, God.
There are so many different layers there. Keaton's grief journey, and that's for him to share. I won't get into it. You know it. You know the story. Yeah. My dad, and I did this whole like montage of a video for, the father-daughter dance and the song and all of that. And I thought, I'm gonna bawl my eyes out. I didn't cry once during that entire day. I'm so happy. So yeah, not that it wasn't sad or emotional, but that's in my mind. I was setting myself up for that. Fast forward to a week later, Keaton and I are on our honeymoon down in Florida. And I'm walking into the breakfast area to grab something, and this mom is like carrying this little girl, and she's crying and screaming. She's like, I just want my dad. I started bawling my eyes out. And Keaton comes walking in, and he said, what's the matter? I said, I want my dad too. But again, out of left field, the anticipation of, my wedding and all these sentimental things, and I'm going to cry. I didn't cry once. Some random little girl throwing a tantrum made me bawl my eyes out. And that's just what happens. You don't know when it's going to happen, and it comes at the weirdest times on the most random days.
Oh, yeah. Look at me. I'm a mess.
She will have an emotional hangover tomorrow.
You think? I don't know. This was not part. I'm thinking to myself, this is how this conversation is going to go. You're going to be really upset and needing the tissues, and you're going to be in your feels, and I'm going to be the strong one that can navigate this. I'm a puddle.
Yeah. I broke the seal. No, I mean, it's
yes,
just,
you did.
This is what I mean, because tomorrow you're going to get a text from me, and it'll be a crying face, and I'll have tears and snot and all of the things because this is what happens. We're talking about this now. Not that I don't talk about it. I talk about it all the time, I feel like. But it's going to hit me at another point in the next day or two.
How would you want me to respond? I want to ask that because even for all of those other hard days
Yeah.
peppered throughout the year, people mention something, I'm so sorry, send a heart on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who is having grief as their companion,
Yeah.
how would you like people to show up for you? Or what do you like to receive? That'll be my final question.
I think what I liked to receive, even when my dad passed away, people that were already on that journey and knew about it, and what I try to do for others, I send the texts on like a day of remembrance or just a random day, thinking of you or a heart. No need to text me back. Just want you to know that you're in my thoughts. I'm celebrating your dad. I'm thinking of whatever it is. I'm having a shot for Lou.
Or a martini.
But yes, or a martini. But that piece is so important, especially in the early days of grief when everybody's gathered around you and you have all that support and it's overwhelming. I'm thinking of you. I love you. Whatever it is. But ending that with no need to text me back. Because we put that pressure on ourselves. Like, I have to respond to everybody. That just like, I just always felt such a relief when people would do that. And I'm like, they get it. They get it.
That's awesome. All right. Well, it is time to wrap it up, even though we can do this for like another 100 more hours.
Yes, and we will, because let's be honest.
I'll just need electrolytes because I'm like,
she's so
all
depleted.
cried out.
She's depleted.
What was that? Who sang that? All cried.
Yeah, it's that one.
Sisters with Voices?
Maybe.
I don't know.
know.
I'm the worst with like anything pop culture. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll wave to the camera. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening, watching.
That's right.
Thank you. All days are good days.
And she said it right there. Perfect. Bye, friends. Oh. Take what lands, leave what doesn't, and keep moving forward. Follow wherever you're listening, and if you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know.